a brief time during the early fall and winter, the hunting season is open, and the thrill of bagging the first bird of the year is what every hunter longs for. Yep, he got him, and you can bet his dog Jeff will be right on the job to retrieve the prize. For some men, spring and summer means relaxation on the golf course, or angling in that favorite stream for the big one who somehow always seems to get away. Others prefer photography, developing and printing of prize pictures they have taken while enjoying a restful vacation. But today, hundreds of thousands of men, young and old, have found a new hobby: model railroading. Model railroading is a year-round hobby. It combines all the realism, creative ability, and fascination men have sought for in a hobby. With the understanding of a few basic principles, you will be on your way to building a model system that will provide many hours of enjoyment for you, your family, and friends. Operating trains is only part of model railroading. There's also the building of the many varieties of cars and locomotives, from giant articulated engines down to small, powerful diesel switch engines, to complete villages with miniature trolley cars and town halls. This is all part of the enjoyment of building a model railroad. In a sense, the model builder is an all-around craftsman. He doesn't have to be a professional, just good enough to build a framework to support his track, to wire simple electrical control panels that will operate his miniature layout with all the realism of a true railroad. Model railroading is a hobby that all the family can enjoy. The teamwork of father and son has laid hundreds of feet of track and installed switches patterned from real railroads. Many a modeler's wife has lent her artistic touch in building scenery. Common patching plaster mixed with water and applied over old window screen provide an excellent foundation for mountains, hills, and tunnel portals. Realistic trees, either purchased from hobby shops or made from dried weeds, add the finishing touch to a suburban residence. However, it's usually Dad who assembles the cars and locomotives. He builds them up from kits, complete with motor and all parts ready to assemble. Some men enjoy making their own locomotives. They fashion each part from steel and brass. Yes, every one is handmade. It takes months of fitting and filing of each individual part to transform it into a finished locomotive, complete in every detail. When the locomotives move out of the roundhouse onto the turntable, ready to be coupled to a long freight, it's pretty hard to tell they are only models. The originals of this man's beautifully detailed models are operated today on the New York Central, B&O, Santa Fe, Chesapeake and Ohio, Pennsylvania, and many others. Miniature railroading really began with the toy trains, but then, like today, they were used primarily at Christmas time. But you know what happened? Dad became interested. He began to think of trains not only as a seasonal toy to be put away with the ornaments and lights, but something that could be developed into a hobby for men as well as older boys. Before long, a new hobby was born. Now, this new hobby was to become known as scale model railroading. It wasn't long until model manufacturing companies were formed. Their designers began to scale down the blueprints of real locomotives and cars. The scale they used was termed O-gauge. The idea of scale model railroading spread rapidly. It wasn't long until men were building and operating well-detailed miniature railroads. As model railroading grew, more and more men realized that it was a fascinating hobby, something a man could show to his friends, something he could really be proud of. By 1935, 4,000 hobbyists were building their railroads. The growth of the hobby was steady, reaching 18,000 active builders by 1941. During the war, the hobby growth was slower, but doctors in rehabilitation centers found that assembling locomotives and cars was a great help in therapeutic treatment. After the war, model railroading began to grow more rapidly than ever before. By 1947, there were over 38,000 builders throughout the country. An interesting fact is that at no time has the hobby leveled off in its popularity. New modelers are enthusiastic. They often get together over the luncheon table, where a newly assembled car kit gets more attention than the apple pie. In 1950, there were 104,000 model layouts in operation. Today, more than 200,000 men and women from ages 15 to 80 and from all walks of life, skilled workers, clerical men, farmers, business executives, salesmen, professional men, and many others are building and operating model railroads in their own homes. Students in secondary or high school find that electrical problems are more easily understood through their experiences in model railroading. Many school directors and teachers have found that model programs develop teamwork and good fellowship among students, as well as having educational values. On the campus of numerous colleges and universities, students have started their model railroading career. They have found it to be an excellent means of relaxation from study. Today, throughout the country, there are more than 2,000 model railroad clubs. It takes a lot of careful planning to develop a track plan that will keep all the members busy. Each man in a club is often a specialist in his field, but it takes the teamwork of all to build a club-sized railroad. Whether you build at a club or in your own home, you will want to incorporate all the realism of actual railroads into your plans. The three-rail tin-plated track sections of the toy train has been replaced in scale model railroading by authentic two-rail track. And more attention is given to detail. Solid metal rail is fastened to wood ties or solid track supports, providing a smooth running surface. Fine gravel resembling stone is often added for ballast, just as is done in laying track in real railroads. Tin plate cars and locomotives, like those in the foreground, are made so they can negotiate the sharp curves of the tin-plated track and switches. But in scale modeling, proportions are exactly reduced from real railroad equipment. Much of the material used in building model railroads can be obtained in one of the nation's 4,500 hobby shops. Enthusiastic model railroaders often incorporate ideas sketched along the right-of-way or in yards of many railroad systems. Take John Boyd, for example. He knew his dealer would have a model similar to the coaling station that he sketched in the engine yards of his local terminal. Many manufacturers have scaled down the varieties of buildings used by the railroads. These buildings, like the coaling station that John was interested in using on his home railroad, are reduced in correct proportion to the cars and locomotives they will be used with. It was in this same shop 3 years ago that John began his model railroad hobby. It all started when he noticed the attractive cover of the Model Railroader magazine at his local newsstand. The interesting ideas and plans became part of his imagination. This was something he'd often thought of building for himself. He wondered if Ruth and Jerry would be interested in building this together as a family project. The magazine had many articles about laying out a track plan, building scenery, and many other interesting ideas. The classified directory of the magazine was John's introduction to his local hobby shop. John found his dealer to be more than a salesman. He was a model builder himself and could offer many suggestions. He showed John the various gauges or sizes that he could select from in building his model layout. He explained which gauge was the most popular among many of his customers and suggested a gauge that would best fit the space that John had available. The many varieties of car kits that dealers carry in stock are easy to assemble and inexpensive. In model railroading, you don't pay for production line assembly. You are the builder. You build and add to your equipment over a period of years. With many model railroaders, freight cars are the most popular. They, too, are designed in every detail to resemble actual cars of many railroad systems, as well as cars leased by individual corporations for their use. These are only a few of the many models that can be built which will make your layout more interesting. Locomotives, too, play a big part in model railroading. Your local hobby dealer will aid you in choosing one of the numerous types of locomotive kits. He will know which kit would be best suitable for you, and his experience in building all types of equipment will aid you in starting your model railroad hobby right. For the model builders who prefer to spend time in building scenery, many materials such as colored stone, grass, trees, and many other articles, yes, even to lamp posts, garbage cans, and fire hydrants are all available in actual scale. Many varieties of buildings also come in kit form, such as industrial buildings, loading docks, stores, farms, and houses. Some ingenious builders have even created a village fire, complete with ladder wagon, pumpers, and ambulances. In model railroading, there are several ways to build your track. Some builders prefer to use ready-mounted track, while others prefer a solid wood base with simulated ties to which the rail is fastened into position. Whatever your choice might be, you'll find either to be highly realistic with curves in any shape or degree your track plan may call for. Switches, model railroaders call them turnouts, also come in kits ready to be fastened to the roadbed. Or if you prefer, you can make them by shaping pieces of scrap rail. To operate your railroad, you must have power. In model railroading, power packs replace the tinplate transformer. These power packs furnish safe, low-voltage, direct currents to drive your locomotives. Connected with simple toggle switches, they control the throw of your turnouts and operate block signals that direct the flow of traffic in your yards and along the right-of-way. From the time you begin building the framework to support your track, you'll be surprised to see how your layout will grow. In a year or two, your skeleton framework will be transformed into a beautiful miniature railroad empire. When you pull open the throttle of your own railroad, you become a part of this miniature empire. You're the engineer of a cracked diesel limited. You're the man in the control tower, directing the flow of traffic through a busy yard. You're a brakeman, routing a switch engine through the terminal to make up a long freight. In fact, you're the president of the road. The more than 200,000 model railroad builders are serviced by an industry of over 150 manufacturers. The industry has created jobs. Skilled machinists have found new job opportunities in making precision dies, so cars and locomotive parts can be turned out by the thousands to supply the demand of the builders. Model railroaders have their own monthly magazine, comprised from their suggestions and ideas. The linotype operators and makeup men are kept busy supplying the giant presses so that the more than 150,000 copies each month of the Model Railroader magazine and other publications will reach the hobby shops across the nation on time. In the magazine's testing laboratory in Milwaukee, new equipment is put to rigid tests. The reports of these tests are a guide to the model builder regarding the quality of new merchandise. The National Model Railroad Association holds a convention each year. Here, hundreds of leading model railroad hobbyists gather to discuss new equipment and exchange ideas and plans. Regional conventions are held in many smaller areas of the country throughout the year. John's model railroad began with 2 inexpensive car kits. With the help of his dealer, articles he read, and suggestions and ideas from his many interested friends, John's plans grew over the years into a beautiful miniature layout. The coaling station was just what he needed to put the finishing touch to his busy freight yard. John's model is typical of the work of many model builders throughout the country. His track plan, which began with a simple oval, was gradually improved and now permits the operation of several trains at one time. While a giant articulated engine hauls a long freight over the mountain section, his fast diesel limited clears the tunnel and heads for the straightaway of the main line. The industrial and freight yards of John's model are a busy place as his diesel switch engine makes up a long freight. You know, it's odd, but once you become a model railroader, you never stop. Your interest grows through the years, along with your hobby. Each new car you build adds a new pleasure. Each locomotive, whether it be steam or diesel, will provide many hours of operating enjoyment. No special talents are required to build and operate a miniature railroad system. An elaborate supply of tools is not necessary, and very little space is needed. The vast experience of the people in the 4,500 hobby shops throughout the country have shown many potential builders how they, too, can build a layout within the small space of an apartment, basement, attic, or recreation room. Most important, model railroading is inexpensive. It's a hobby that all the family can enjoy. Let your hobby dealer show you why these and many other reasons have placed model railroading at the top of the nation's hobby list. You'll enjoy a better tomorrow if you start your hobby today.